Right now, STEM is my game, Punim is my name. So superintendent, and if you just stick a hyphen between super and intendant, we have two of them in the house. We have two superintendents. And in fact, they're so important to us. I want them both to stand. I want you to give them a love, give them a woot woot. It is hard what they do. Stand up, Pat. We have two superintendents in the house, yes. Woot woot. That's right. So my name is Punim and I've got just a 5-minute segue. I honor you, Dean Metcalf, second annual Good for You. Really important to have convenings like this. Got a very good friend of mine who earlier this year said to me, you know, some days I just need a little bit of help stepping back far enough to maintain a perspective in which I feel only gratitude and inspiration. Thank you for giving us a place to come now for the second time where we can hold hands to step back to regain a perspective in which we can feel gratitude and inspiration. What a beautiful day it's been. I did a really significantly scientifically cool focus group. I talked to 4 people after the keynote speech and said, what did you hear the speakers say? Because the truth is that we all hear whatever it is that we're looking to hear that day. And here's what the focus group that was methodologically super sound, here's what the 4 of them said, similar but different. One said, I need a reminder to not be limited by the lines. Congratulations, today you have that reminder. Some days we just need a little help stepping back far enough to maintain a perspective in which we can feel only gratitude and inspiration. Another one said, I needed to hear that personally because it's tiring, the work that I do. So I need to be reminded, replenished, reaffirmed, so I can get up and do it tomorrow. Thank you, Dean Metcalf, for giving us an opportunity to get replenished and recharged. A couple of folks said, I forget my own power. It is only a limitation if I call it one. It is only a barrier if I honor it as one. So thank you for the reminder that words matter, and I am powerful, and I'm going to pick my words differently tomorrow. Is it really, really, really hard, or is it impossible? And I have a wonderful association, which is completely inappropriate, and I'm going for it anyway, with Grand Teton. So I'm the daughter of a STEM guy, chemical engineering professor, that would be a super geek STEM guy, who had this fantasy about being a rugged outdoorsman. It is kind of cute, right? Yep. So we would go camping every summer in the pop-up tent trailer, my sisters and I, with our rugged outdoorsy dad and his Hewlett-Packard calculator that was about this big at the time it was first invented. And we went to Grand Teton. We were there. And this, for me, is the one memory where I remember him leaning in, and I had a profoundly frisky moment where my dad actually engaged in potty talk for, I think, the one and only time in my life. And here is what it was. He said, Punim, you know what Grand Teton means? And I said, no. And I think I was 7 or 8. And he said, big boobs. So I have a very different association with Grand Teton, or climbing to the nose. But man, thank you for that. Did I not tell you ahead of time it was completely inappropriate? There should be no surprise, right? So I'm really intrigued because it is a wonderful thing to come into a room and get help to step back far enough to maintain a perspective in which I can feel only gratitude and inspiration. Thank you for reminding us of the example of the Hubble telescope. Thank you for reminding us that universes are much bigger than we are, that galaxies exist whether we know it or not, that sometimes when we go to prove a hypothesis, we are completely affirmed. Other times we go to prove what we know, only to discover what we don't. Sometimes we go to confirm what we know to discover that it's an entirely different solution. Thank you for those reminders, because we walk out today, we're different for that, and it helps us maintain a perspective separate back far enough to maintain gratitude and inspiration as we go back in to the work tomorrow. For those of you that are on the design team at Paradise Elementary, I will say to you 2 words, woot, woot. Thank you for daring to be a Hubble telescope. Thank you for not settling at 400 feet. Thank you for being only curious about what may be. And thank you for your willingness to make sure that we're all going to benefit from the leverage of your findings. It's awesome. To the policy folks, wow, you are super smart. I just did some quick math, and there was like 100 years of post-secondary education sitting up on the stage a minute ago. I'm like, wow. Thank you for your curiosity. Thank you for your commitment to sharing it with all of us. Thank you for your offer to make us better with your research and your provocative questions. So Sheila Bray is the one that I want to lift up. Have you honored her today? No. Sheila, where are you? There's Sheila. So there is Dean Metcalf, who we all know and love, and also there is Sheila Bray, who, and I'm not sure because I often can't see the strings that connect directly to his mouth and his hands and his thoughts, but that's Sheila Bray who holds those strings. So Sheila, thank you. So Sheila sent me a quick summary about the panel and described the panel. It's a beautiful description. She used the word NCAP, that the final panel will conclude the day. There will be the NCAP for the program. And 'tis the season. I've been doing a lot of shopping. There's a lot of NCAPs that I'm running into in my favorite retail outlets these days. And here's what I'm noticing. There's a theme in the NCAPs. They're really delicious products. And they're things I'm not even sure I needed, but then I discover I can't live without. And so that is really fitting for the panel that is going to be this afternoon's NCAP. So let me bring him up now. One, the fellow who, is it awkward to sit up here all by yourself for as long as you've been sitting here? Okay, just wanted you to know we feel your pain. And I'm sorry. Superintendent, see what I mean? First of all, we're going to have Regent Allison Stevens. Regent Stevens, where are you? Representing District 4, Nevada System of Higher Education. Woo, woo, come on, give it up for her. Yeah. Dr. Steve Canavero, Superintendent, State of Nevada. Pat Skorkowsky, super S on his chest, super-intendent, Clark County School District. And who thinks he looks like a very famous French Impressionist painter? Right? Right? I know. Told you, Pat. Thank you for that. Dr. Doris Watson, Associate Dean and Professor, UNLV. Stacey Dallas Johnston, instructor in 2016 U.S. Department of Education Teacher Ambassador Fellow. Stacey, where are you? There we go. And our MCAP moderator is the one, the only, and she wears so many hats that she's here bringing all that wisdom from every hat she wears. Terri Janison, Vice President of the United Way of Southern Nevada. And CAP.
How in the heck do you follow that, right? God bless you, Miss Poonam. Can we give Poonam a little round of applause, right? Or a woot woot. Thank you all so much for sticking around for the very end. We're going to mess it up today, aren't we? We're going to close it with a bang and just bring that energy back. So, Kim, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. I am just privileged to represent the United Way of Southern Nevada. We were able to sponsor this event today from a grant we received from the Lumina Foundation to increase post-secondary degrees and certification. So I had to give my funder a little plug as well. Thank you very much. So if I could, because I believe you are all familiar to the audience out here, but if I could, Stacey, first of all, may I ask you please, because I just met you a few minutes ago and learned a little bit about what you're doing. Can you give us a brief description about the work that you're doing besides being an awesome teacher in the Clark County School District?
Hello. Hi. I'm Stacey Johnston, and I'm a 17-year veteran of the Clark County School District. And this year I have the opportunity to do something a little out of my realm, but really surreal and kind of awesome. The U.S. Department of Education opens up applications every year for a cycle of teachers to apply to be Teaching Ambassador Fellows. There are two arms of this fellowship. One is full-time, where a teacher would take a leave of absence from their district and work full-time in Washington, D.C. at the department. And the other arm is to work part-time, meaning you stay in your classroom full-time as a teacher and then have a part-time position as a fellow with the department. So this year I am a part-time Teaching Ambassador Fellow. There are 10 of us total. Right now, we have completed the network where in the 10-year span of the fellowship, they have been able to have at least one person from every state serve on the ambassador panel at one point. So now we have a network across the United States. I'm the first in Nevada, which I'm very proud to be so. And thank you. And to keep it very brief, our job is really not to become policy experts, though we are learning a lot. We weren't expected to know education policy when we were brought onto the team, but that we had the potential and the desire to learn. So currently, one of the most important things we do is outreach with other educators. What we've kind of noticed is that when educators talk to other educators about these big ideas, it's well received because we are teachers and we don't pretend to know everything, but we know a little bit more, and we can articulate it to our colleagues in a way that makes them understand and want to know more. So outreach is one of the biggest things we do, but we also fit this have you asked a teacher gap at the department, because there are upwards of 4,000 people who work there, many of them civil rights attorneys and many of them that work on education policy, and many of them, a high percentage, have never worked in a school or in a classroom, and the ones that did, and it was 10, 20 years ago. So here we are, there's 10 of us, and that's a small number, but the 10 of us, we become the Have You Asked a Teacher group. So before we say this out loud, let's ask a teacher. Before we think about this idea, let's ask a teacher. And so we have a really, I think, important job to be those actual classroom practitioners that get to say something in the bigger landscape of education.
Stacey, thank you so much. What an incredible opportunity and for representing Nevada, right? So thank you. So what I love about what Stacey was saying too was the collaboration. And when I was researching this panel up here and looking about the diversity that we had, we've got health, we've got researchers, we've got teachers, we've got administrators, and I'm sorry, Superintendent, ecology and systematic biology is your background. So I'm telling you, so we've got it all up here. But what I would love to do is just to have a conversation as opposed to specific questions for each of you and talk about what it is that you're doing to collaborate with each other on some of the work, especially after what you've heard today. So Steve, if I could ask you just to start, because I believe you've probably got a partnership with everybody on this dais.
I hope to have a future partnership with everybody, absolutely, on SDS. Just two quick things. Number one, just reaching out to Superintendent Skorkowsky. He is always open to sitting down and talking through and working out this stuff. And this stuff can be anything that you're referencing. So there are so many opportunities to have informal collaboration that we don't have to have this, okay, if it's on a calendar, it's going to be a collaborative 1 hour. So I'll just say that. We frequently meet with Superintendent Skorkowsky and his team just to calibrate at the state and the district level. And it's fairly new, but it's starting off as a productive way to engage. The last thing I'll just mention is with member Regent Stephen. She's also a member of the State Board of Education and brought forward the idea of the joint meeting once again. And so I guess way back when, as the ice was retreating from the earth, the state board and the Board of Regents would have a collective meeting. And so she asked for, and we established a meeting at which point the 2 resolutions were adopted, and those resolutions are directly applicable today. They signaled an intention as well, a future intention to be more collaborative and more, I think, more conversations between the regents and the state board to understand how we are all looking for the same stuff and likely working on it simultaneously.
And I appreciate that because I attended that meeting. Can you talk a little bit more about that? So I'm thrilled to know that was your idea because I thought, what an incredible opportunity from a collaboration standpoint. Can you talk about what maybe next steps are going to be as you guys continue those conversations?
Right, so I think we've already had the next step, which was I invited Mr. Canavero to come to our Board of Regents meeting, which was held in this room last week on Thursday or Friday. They all run together, the days do. Just to talk about, for one, how K through 12 works and operates and the distinctions between what we're doing at the higher education level versus the constraints that they are facing at the K through 12 level. And then also kind of discussing some of these other items where there's overlap. Certainly with K through 12 and higher ed, we have a lot of overlap when it comes to the pipeline. But then we also do with programs that we have that are in the high schools. And so we have the career and technical education programs. And what I noticed joining the State Board of Education was that the conversations that we were having on the Board of Regents were the same conversations that they were having at the State Board of Education level, and yet we weren't communicating to each other in the most effective way. So that's kind of what precipitated it. And I think opening those doors, having the sit-down conversation, and then continuing on just creates an environment where we send that signal that, first off, that's the expectation. That is what we plan to do. And the other piece that I think a lot of people miss with higher education is that we are the ones who train the teachers. And so that's a big impact that we have. So not only is it the pipeline, not only is it all the projects and things that our institutions do to reach back, even to offer research and opportunities to our students and our faculty, but there's also that piece where we have the ability to train teachers so that they can teach our students in the best way possible and that they are prepared to be able to enter our institutions of higher education. One other really quick note, when I joined the State Board of Education, one of the things that I thought was so important was that they started this high school graduation committee, which was really looking at the high school diploma and whether it held value. And I thought that was so critical and wanted to be in on that conversation. And so we've had some input from our system office because we have a way that we define what it means to be college and career ready from a higher ed perspective. And certainly it was important for us to have input and for us to collaborate from the K through 12 perspective as to what they believe a high school diploma should be.
Pat, have you seen any kind of, what did you see come out of those discussions? Because you've been raising the graduation rate since you took your position, and thank you for all the efforts that you've been doing on behalf of all of our students here.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges that we saw, and one of the things that we saw come out of that, was a conversation about truly what a diploma means and the value that it carries out the door. It can't be just a series of tests that they pass and a series of courses that they pass. It has to be something that does prepare them for the next level. And we've been working on that in the district. Now this is our 4th year with really focusing in on not just graduation, not just the achievement gaps to get graduation rates to the levels they should be, but the advanced placement and the international baccalaureate programs that we have in our district, and have pushed more and more students to get ready for the rigor of higher ed, which is essential. And we've been able to do that and do that very well in the past 3 years, actually past 4 years now. So that's something that's important. The other thing is actually having the conversation about what a graduation requirement should be, and working closely with Dr. Canavero and the rest of the superintendents in the state, really looking at what it does mean for every one of our students. What are the standards? When you hear us compared to every other state, you have to realize that every other state has different graduation rates and different graduation requirements. And so we have to make sure that we look at what is the best for our students, how do we prepare them for the next step, and how do we ensure that they are ready to go out, even as mature as they may or may not be at 18 years old, ready to take on the world.
Terrific. And Dr. Watson, so what are you all doing to get them, the teachers, ready to go in and help just complete all of this incredible work?
Well, first off, I want to, can you hear me? Yeah. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be an NCAP, and also to be closer to light, because I'm warming up finally now. So without question, I think what has been the theme throughout most of today is the notion of there's no silver bullet, right? There's not one thing that we can address. There's not one solution, but it's really about the 360 wraparound services. And I think that speaks to Kim, the notion of paradise. That's at the hub of what will be happening there. And I think for us as a college of education, the opportunity is always to have opportunity to speak openly. Regular meetings with the district, with our state system offices are key to addressing the teacher pipeline, the graduation rates. I think there's no better place to be, and I think it encapsulates also the notion, Steve, of we're 400 feet off the ground, right? Don't look down, don't be paralyzed by that analysis, but rather look up and keep your plan moving forward.
So thank you. So I really want to have a conversation. So I don't want to have to, if you guys want to jump in, please do at any time. But where I think I want to go now is that Kim kicked it off this morning, and I loved it. It sounds like the mantra at UNLV this year is to be daring, different, and diverse, right? So As you all are thinking about the work that you're doing, I would love for you to just think about one of the things that's in your wheelhouse right now, and what can you do to be a little bit more daring or different to be able to impact the students that, and all of you represent and or work for and with?
I'll start. I think for myself in the College of Ed, pardon?
Yeah, that's what Steve said. He goes, thank goodness.
So daring. So for us, I think is in our college are the conversations around how we prepare teachers as it pertains to ARL, right? So I think, I've been around the block a few times, a couple minutes now. I've been in education, and the notion of ARL and how we can best prepare folks to be in our schools that come through an alternative route to licensing program, and so to flip that narrative instead of ARLs here, we just kind of do it, but what are the next best practices? So those are the conversations that we're having in our college with CCSD, with Nye County. What are the ways that we can prepare folks that are effective? I think lots of times we think of, and traditionally, so education is about front-end loading, right? Preparing a teacher is front-end loading. What can we do to flip that narrative and to prepare and to continue to prepare them while they're when they get to the classroom and through the first year, the second year, and the third year. So for us, it's really looking at that 360, I'm going to keep saying that, but the 360 approach to serving our teachers and then therefore subsequently the students and their families. So that's a conversation we're having in our college.
And I'd like to piggyback off of that. When it talks about daring, one of the things that we thought about in CCSD, and I work closely with Steve on, is the ability to allow new types of partnerships within the Clark County School District. Paradise was one that came out of that, the partnership with higher education. I saw Lisa McAnallen here earlier, and so the partnership that we have with the Wynn Corporation and Peterson Elementary School just down the street. Even though they are right next to each other, they share a lot of similar students, they share a lot of similar problems, but in some ways they are night and day different from each other. You look at what we have done with Downtown Achieves. I saw Michelle Layton here, and the Reinvent schools that we are doing, and Lisa is here from the city. Amazing opportunities to think outside the box and not just sit back and say, okay, we're going to approach this the same way every day in every school. We have to be a little more open to those ideas. And it's where our partnerships, and I look around the room and I see all these faces of people who are either employees, have been employees, or engaged in the work, and the partnerships that we have with them, which truly is going to make the difference when you think about Public Ed Foundation, when you think about, just the different foundations. The Elaine P. Wynn Foundation has done so much for our students. I look at Yvette Williams here with the Black Caucus. We have so many partners who literally come to the table to say, we want to help. And it's not just about we're going to do this, it's how can we work together to make this system better and stronger for all of our students, regardless of where they live and what they come from.
Yeah, Pat, you know what, can you go a little bit further than that? Because Dr. Joe Morgan and I were talking earlier after he got off of his panel. So that the 3 different schools that you have put out there, I think that all those are both daring and different about where you're going to go with them. But we were talking about the fact that each one of those has a different focus, if you will. Can you talk about what the 3 different priorities are, and then what you're going to do with them in year 2 after those 3 have shown success?
Well, you heard all about the UNLV school, so I don't need to go into detail, but it is that new concept of education innovation and being able to use it truly as a teaching school, much like a teaching hospital, and to be able to have that type of environment. We're so thrilled with that opportunity and what it will bring to not only our students in that school, not just the teachers in that school, but to teaching across the entire valley. Peterson is a little bit different approach. We realized that we had 169 employees who had students from Wynn, or the Encore, who had students at Peterson Elementary School because it literally is just right down the street. So we began the conversation. They already started having partnerships in an amazing way, but we've truly doubled down on this to where the entire corporation has just taken over this school, not only for the benefit of the students in the school, but their employees and getting them engaged engaged in the work. When you walk into that school, it's a completely different environment. Krista Yarberry has just done an amazing job of bringing climate and culture into literally one of the most at-risk environments we have in the entire valley. These students, we have to figure out a way so that she can keep those students from the minute they walk in the door at the beginning of the year through the entire year, so that they can have stability in their lives, because many times they are moving from apartment to apartment, from room to room, to couch, wherever they're at. So they brought in an entire wraparound services program to really benefit these students and to fill the needs that they have, while teachers are finally able to open up and just teach the students because they know their basic needs are being met. So it's a different way of looking at that. With the Downtown Achieve, the Reinvent schools in the city of Las Vegas, we're really focusing in on what can happen before and after school, as well as the partnerships that can be developed through that initial work that the United Way was so instrumental in the very beginning. And so it is really looking at the partnerships and trying to pair up community and business partners with schools who have specific needs to make sure that they're able to move those students forward. Again, very challenging schools, very challenging neighborhoods, but a commitment that it shouldn't matter what your zip code is, that you should achieve at the highest level regardless of where you live.
Who's going to be next? Daring. What are you going to do, Daring, Steve? Besides
Follow that.
Yosemite, yeah.
That might be. No, I'll just go on the maybe different and diverse line quickly. Historically, the department, when we have the entirely unsexy work of responding to sort of federal policy, we kind of a history of going and collecting, asking folks to serve on committees and panels, and many times the committees and panels are, we typically run through a roster of relevant associations. Who should be present at the conversation and to discuss the implementation of sort of a federal plan. This is different this time under the Every Student Succeeds Act. And I think where it's different is that we have said that's fine, like whatever, we have this sort of federal landscape, that's great. But Nevada will place this federal policy landscape in service to our priorities. We will say what matters. We will articulate that in a plan that will be approved by the feds. But it's time for Nevada to lead instead of asking sort of creating a system that's in alignment to these federal requirements, more so than alignment to Nevada's context and Nevada's situation. Moving that forward and sort of sticking with that commitment, then when we pull together work groups and advisory groups to help us understand how to do this well, I made a decision to go directly to teachers and principals, superintendents. Yvette and Sylvia are on the group. I got a little bit of heat for it because it's not traditional, it's different, and that's something you got to be willing to withstand if you're doing something that's different or out of the sort of mainstream from what people are used to expecting. But I have to tell you, it's been entirely productive. It has been incredibly rewarding to be in the meetings, to listen, and to hear the advocacy for kids. It sometimes it gets lost in all of the muddle and muck of the daily work, but it's just been a rewarding experience.
I have to tell you, I think you're just doing an amazing job on that, because it's not an easy conversation to wrangle, especially with all of us personalities, right? But I think you guys are doing a great job. And so thank you for inviting people to the table to actually listen to what they have to say. So, Stacey, I got to ask you, right? We talked about this a little bit before. I'm not going to go too much into politics, right? But we're having a change in administration. What is that going to have any impact on the work that you all do as ambassadors, or what do you see, and how does that correlate for them? Now you are at a federal level. You are on the ground as a teacher, knowing the policy, and then what's happening every day. What do you think what do you perceive that's going to happen in the next year or so?
What I can say about that is, regardless of what would have happened at the federal level, there was going to be change. So we were all kind of talked to about how we embrace that change, which I think was brought up in the keynote today, that there's going to be new faces next time we come to Washington, that some of the things we've learned we may have to unlearn, and new things we're going to have to learn. A lot of things are going to change. But what we're proud of at the fellowship level is that we are a consistent thing, and that's actually a really good thing. That the 10 of us were brought in specifically, they said in this cycle, that they were really looking for people that could articulate the vision of teachers, regardless of who's sitting in what office. So as we were here in October, we said goodbye to 200 people. And when we come back in February, we will say hello to 200 people. But our message is not going to change. So we're still teachers in the classroom. We're still fighting the same fight. We're still working for the same kids. So regardless of all of that, we're the consistency. And that's really a huge honor. And I think the one thing I've taken away from it so far is that, this is only a one-year position. And in August, new people will step in. But I'm not going anywhere here either. So it's really motivated me to, dig deep roots in my state, just to say, because I went to school here, I went to college here, I've been teaching here for 17 years. A lot of fellows, I think, see beyond their classroom after the fellowship and think about all these things, and I really want to stay here, and do something here. So I think it's just a great opportunity to learn. I'm by no means an expert, but I'm definitely learning more than your average classroom teacher does by being in a silo. And that's just what I wanted to kind of add onto that as listening, is that teaching is kind of an isolated thing sometimes. You can be in your classroom with your door closed for 30 years if you choose to. And it's scary to step out of it and try to insert yourself in these conversations, but I think it's really necessary. And so that's something I've learned already, is that it's okay to pick up the phone, it's okay to send an email, it's okay to introduce yourself to people and say, I want to learn more about this and I want to be a part of this, because these conversations should happen with teachers. And they want to be part of the conversation, and so it's just been a great honor to be inserted and to get to come to things like this.
Do you see the impact of these?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I have a clarifying question for my moderator over there. Is that 10 minutes total? Should I start taking Q&A right now? Till the end. All right. So I just want to have one more little question with you all, because this morning, Phil, I'm not sure how many of you saw the keynote speaker this morning, but he was just so impactful. But he made the comment about embrace the limitations that you have in front of you and look inside the box. Maybe stop looking outside the box all the time. Does that resonate with anybody? And you all don't have to answer, but I love that fact, because we're always think outside the box. Well, maybe those things are inside the box. What can we do to think inside the box to help make it move forward and be beneficial for our students?
So one of the things that I've noticed with higher education is that we tend to focus on how things are done. There is a culture to higher education and to academia. And so I'll give a quick example. We've been talking about housing on the UNLV campus. It's been a significant issue along with parking. We want to move towards top tier. We need to have students on the campus in order to take advantage of services. And at one point, I remember sitting in a meeting and hearing a fellow regent say, well, X% of students are not living on campus. They need to come to campus. And it finally clicked for me. Wait a minute, we're the second most diverse campus in the nation. Non-white students don't necessarily move out of the house when they're 18. So how about we stop trying to chase down something that doesn't fit our demographics and start figuring out ways to meet the needs of the students that we have. And so
that's a novel idea. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Who would have thought? And so that's, just one of those examples where we have to really take an inventory of who are the students that we are serving and what can we do instead of trying to fit them into this box of academia that's been in existence for a very long time and was certainly not created in order to benefit the types of students that we have today, be that, socioeconomic issues or ethnic background, first languages that we're coming into, people who are coming from other countries as international students. Academia was not created for the students that we serve. And so instead of trying to force them to be in this box, we need to take it upon ourselves to figure out how we're going to serve Nevadans. So that's that definitely resonates with me because that's what I've tried to do.
Beautiful, thank you.
To segue off of that, so for us in the College of Education, some of the conversations we've had as it pertains to us being the second most diverse campus and a minority serving institution, is to lean into the statement of what does it mean to serve, right, instead of enroll. So enroll versus serving our students. And so looking at, we've had conversations, Danica, our Executive Associate Dean, and a couple of our faculty, Christine Clark being one of them, of can we be innovative? So thinking inside the box and using our existing strengths. So can we offer Spanish language, dual language courses in higher education, right? Because that connects very amazing with what Dr. Duradella is doing, as well as Dr. Clark. And so I think using and recognizing the existing strengths within the College of Education as it pertains to moving forward, that would be one example for us.
So much. Any questions out there? I don't have anything scrolling to say if anybody's tweeting them. So are there any questions in the audience for our panel, please?
Before we jump to questions, can I just add, I think one of the biggest challenges that we face when you talk about the box is I think education's box is constantly changing, and it's not necessarily just four walls, a bottom, and a top. It evolves, and we have to realize that education has to evolve within that. We're really working on, the reorganization with the concept of bounded autonomy, meaning that yes, you have flexibilities and freedoms. You still have the basic accountability. You have the basic structures, but how do you make the most of your box and what it is that you have? And so a box to us doesn't mean those six sides. It means that it is a contained area, but it may look very different from one school to the next. And we need to allow that flexibility and freedom to do that within the constraints that we have for policies, regulations, and laws.
And I appreciate that. And it's just, right? Clap for him too, right? It's just what you said, but like in a different scenario. So just serve the population that you were there for, not what we want them to fit into. So I just appreciate that. Okay, any questions out there? I'm not believing it. They're asleep? Okay. All right. So if anybody does, jump up and you can ask a question. But I think what I would like to do, so Dr. Bernanke made a comment earlier, and he was talking about the importance of data. Can you all just touch briefly on it? Because I think you each hit something different. How are you using data, and what is it doing for us to help drive education forward? Steve, may I ask you to go first?
Sure. So this is a really sort of interesting topic, and I've done a lot of sort of thinking around data, what it means, the stories that it actually is telling us that we like to hear, that we don't like to hear. So I'll just say it. I don't believe that we serve our children or we serve our community when we hide part of the story because we feel like we're trying to protect folks. I get it. Like I really can understand why that is a sort of human nature and why it's important to talk about really good stuff. And it's one of the reasons why I talk, and I think that this notion of the fastest improving state in the nation is the right aspect. And I had made the comment that if we talk about being last in the nation, it's like looking at Half Dome in 1940, right? It's just too big of a problem. And at times it becomes disheartening or, oh, here we are again. And then there's this sort of counterbalance to just focus on sort of the positives. I believe we have to look at it all, and we have to look at it through an equity lens where we need to understand, as was told to us on this panel prior, sort of the challenges that our students face, and that we can sort of better appreciate where we can lean in and support students going forward. So I really would hope that we can continue to have sort of a robust dialogue around what the data say. We can be honest about what these data are telling us. And then really, more importantly, we actually do something about it. So we see these data, we understand what they're telling us, and then let's act on it. It's critical for us not just to talk about data to motivate and to move the system sort of forward collectively, but to get really precise about the problem that we're trying to solve. I think, at the department, we're really trying to understand how we can support with data. I mean, oftentimes the State Department or states through for a long history use data to hit people over the head. And we see it as really an opportunity to engage in a conversation. So for example, when we look at the information coming back, we look at the data coming back from our Smarter Balanced assessments, historically we just ship that off to the districts, we talk about it, we slice it up and we look at it and we do slides like I just showed you. But we think that the next step in this is to look at that data a little bit more closely, look at the standards that it aligns to, look at where in some of our regions we can have a facilitated conversation with the professional development programs, the district folks, the teachers, and we can say, look, collectively we see a challenge here. How can we all work on this? Sorry, I went
That's
on
all
and
right.
on.
That's okay. I mean, I'm actually becoming a data geek myself, which is it's really frightening to me. But it does tell a story. How are the rest of you using it to drive the work that you are in?
Well, I think, I guess I'm going to get on my soapbox for 1 second. We are not last in the nation. When you look at the academic factors and quality counts, we are 38th in the nation this last year on the academic factors. The other 7 factors, and this is where I just, about blow a gasket every time. The other 7 factors are the home life, what's going on in the community, language spoken in the home, the education level of the parents. So we are not last. We are 38th on that quality count study when it comes to the academic factors. And so data tells a story, you're right, but it's not just one story. And where's Leanne Putney? Because she would be so proud. I've had her there she is. There is both qualitative and quantitative data. And you have to listen to both sides of the story. And so that's the piece I think is so important, that we have so been driven by the numbers that we forget each one of those numbers represents a kid who may or may not have slept in a bed last night or may not have had a meal since they left school. So let's put the story together. Let's tell the entire story. And I agree with Steve. We have to be better about the story, but we have to realize that it's not just about a number. It's about a face that number represents.
Boy, I don't know if we could wrap it up any better than that. So thank you all so very much for all of your work. And I think that you see here that you've got as many partners as you want to help you drive your work. So please reach out and let us know what we can do. So Kim, thank you very much for having us here today as well.
Well, am I? Yes, I guess I am on. I can't really tell. I just want to say thank you to all of you for attending today. One of the things that's been really gratifying to watch as the day has progressed is that you've had an opportunity to see the broad range of folks who are truly committed to education in Nevada. Bring very diverse, sometimes even conflicting opinions about what that means, but who came together to talk through this, to listen to other people. Many of you have been partners of the College of Ed for a long time. Many of you, certainly everyone on this stage, is a friend of the college, but I hope today, if nothing else, has reinforced for us that we are many in number, even when we don't collect in one room like this. We are many in number. We're committed to the children of Nevada. And working together, there's a great deal that we can do that we simply cannot do as long as we continue to work in isolation. Thank you so much for sharing this second annual Summit on Nevada Education. I wish you a very happy holidays, and I hope we see you again next year. Thank you.